Okay, my outstanding friends, get ready for this. This is about Donald Trump's pledge to create a new university system which will be free online, and he plans to fund it by suing excessively large private universities' endowments. Well, who should they start with suing? Well, let's see. All right, so he's talking about excessively large private universities. Well, who would you think of right off the bat? I would think of Yale University. Well, could you sue Yale? What would you sue them for? Well, let me show you why you'd sue them and why we should sue them and why Trump should jump on this thing with both feet instantaneously. Okay, you're going to find this hard to believe because I do, but it's true. We're going to start off with the emails. Each one of these is an email primarily to Yale, specifically to Derek Briggs, but also to their legal department, to the president, to the physics, Professor Shankar, to all of them at Yale. Everybody, right up from the bottom to the top, I contacted them, their legal department, everybody. And these are the emails. And this is the first one where I originally contacted Derek Briggs with my Mudfossil discovery. Okay, so why should they sue Yale? This goes back to March of 2015. That's a long time ago. And I contacted Professor Berger down at Yale, and he said, no, you've got to talk to Derek Briggs. So I said, hello, my name's Roger Spur. Professor Berger requested I contact you regarding mud fossilization. I had already had everything done. I'm working with wet, platy, silicate mud rocks, which are thought not to contain fossils. This is in Connecticut, and he's 15 minutes down the road. Down at Yale. I'm right down the street, basically. I'm in Middletown. They don't contain bones like dry desert sands, but they contain actual mud rocky copies of the creatures, some with possible DNA. And yes, they do have DNA. And then I went on to say how it happens because the bones basically are so reactive. The bone is replaced quickly with percolates and wet. The preservation, well, here's back here. The process is literally electrical replacement, nucleophilic invasion. And it is, at that point, I thought it was caused by electrical telluric currents through these platypolar silicates, which in a way it was. I made some mud fossils and they didn't come out too bad, and that's what I used. But I didn't realize that oceans were hot and boiling. And MIT just released something that said yes, there was boiling on a time when the oceans boiled worldwide. And the same thing with the Yale. They say there was 3 layers worldwide. It's called a Triassic. Red bed, gray clay, black cap. Red bed is the boiled flesh. It's the flesh that boiled off creatures and left behind their body parts like lungs and all the rest. And they were saved because of the fascia. So anyway, I gave him this. I said, take a look at this. This is Derek Briggs. Now that goes back to 2015. And at this point, I gave him all the information about the silicates, about the preservation process, about the different things, and then I went on to have him CAT scanned and DNA tested. So now listen to this now. I pestered Derek Briggs for a year, all of them at Yale. And finally, he did respond back. And I said, thank you for your opinion. I thought I was in the geology department. I believe, however, it merits at least examination. Thank you for your reply, Roger. Dear Mr. Spur, here's what his reply was. Listen to this. All right, here's what his reply was after all my barraging him. He says, thank you for your email of today and the attached materials, which showed everything. I showed everything about my mud fossils. My apologies that some of your emails have gone unanswered, but I know that you have received responses from my colleague, Armand Morgan. And yes, Armand and I became quite intimate friends. Well, I don't know about friends, but we were I told the last words I said to Armand, I said, when we're done with this, you guys are going to look like absolute fools. I didn't realize we're going to be able to sue him. Trump is here now. We are going to be able to sue him, and I know he'll sue the hell out of him. And he doesn't go for the little bucks. We're going to get some big bucks out of this to fund his true education. This is nothing but, well, when I looked it up, it qualifies as fraud. Let me show you what fraud is in the academic arena. But I said, he says, I have watched the video on your website and considered your results once again. This has been going on for a while. Unfortunately, it remains my view that these are not fossils and rocks are similar in appearance to various anatomical features. And then he goes on to say, unfortunately, human DNA is everywhere. Because I said I got the human DNA. This is DNA reports, CAT scans, specimens, all that stuff. Now listen to this. Listen to this. He's supposed to be the head of all of this stuff. He says, he's saying we can't take any DNA, forget about that because it's everywhere. Well, I was very careful the way I did it, and I had the specimens to back up what I'm saying. They can be retested, and I'm not going to retest them because there's no sense in it. And they won't do it. And he won't even look at it. He would not let me come to Yale and show him any of these things because I had too much evidence. Now listen to his last words. This is absolute disgrace. I am not an expert on human anatomy or vertebrate paleontology. Oh, he's just, vertebrate paleontology means something with bones. He says everything is just slime. He says one strategy might be to find a geologist familiar with rocks in your area who could comment on your specimens. Perhaps there's someone in the Connecticut Geological Survey. Every single person that I talked to after Yale said, go to Yale. Go talk to Derek Briggs at Yale. He's the guy. I said, he won't talk to me. And they said, well, that's because you're an idiot. And then they hang up the phone. And he hung up on me too. I have one of these emails in here where I say, I was disconnected somehow. I got nasty after a while. I got very bitter. I got extremely bitter because that's what happens when people don't pay attention to you. And I had the DNA reports. Can I show you the DNA reports? Here they are right there. This goes back to 2015. Same time I'm just saying to Briggs, I said, you better pay attention to this. You're going to be in trouble for this. This is not right. You're not doing your duty to the students. And at that point, I started getting pretty nasty. And it got very, very contentious. And it ended up really bad with the University of Texas because he said you had to go get a CAT scan, you got to this. And I forced the University of Texas to do a CAT scan for a head we had. And that did not go well. And when I wanted a couple of answers, they refused to talk to me. And then I bombarded them with emails too. And then I got calls from police and lawyers saying I'm threatening people. And then they started to really shut me down, basically, somehow. I don't know how they did it, but they just destroyed everything I did. My YouTube site was going crazy, and then it was done. And then I just basically abandoned it for several years, and then I started up really strong again, because I'm not going to walk away from this. I got all the evidence. This is serious stuff. And this was good quality, high quality tests, PCR, DNA tests, and they did all of this stuff, and these are all the positive, negative controls and all this business and the elutions and excellent quality sequence obtained from the 36-inch tip and the lung. And here's what it came back: Homo sapien, mitochondrial, cytochrome B gene, and D-loop region. And they did all this stuff here. This was a serious test. And it was certified by Tom Pajenko. He was the lab director. I worked with him closely. He was a fabulous guy to work with, extremely knowledgeable, and the only one that would stand up back then. And I know he paid the price for it, because we did talk after this, and he said, make sure that you are absolutely certain that that everybody understands. I, Roger Spur, not Helix Biolabs. I, Roger Spur, not Helix, extracted the samples. They extracted the DNA from the samples that I sent to them. The samples I sent were drilled out of body parts, specifically this one here. It's a lung. And if I put water on there right now, I could turn that into red blood, just streaming off red blood. The Mudfossil process, where blood was sequestered underneath, it was protected by pleura, fascia, and skin, wrapped around it and holding it inside. And under these conditions of the mud fossils, the nucleophilic invasion doesn't bother the blood. The blood doesn't seem to get invaded the way all the tissues do. The blood is the invader. All right, so these are all the emails, and these are the blow-ups of each email. And, you know, I have found this was the fingertip. It's 3 feet long. That's 3 feet long. And that's the fingernail. See, it goes right up around. That's just like your fingernail. It's a fingernail. And this is the bumper pad that goes up against the next bone so that it doesn't scrub and get all torn up. And these are the vein and the artery that supply the blood, which is extensive in fingertips. I mean, they're saturated with blood. But the skin is also very, very dense, so you can't get it from the skin area. Some places, this here, from this fascia, all you got to do, right? I should show you, but you could, well, I probably will. But anyway, all you got to do is put some water on here. It turns into red blood. I mean, just red blood. Here's a different story. This was exposed and solidified the outside. There was no way I could get any blood from there. So I had to break this piece off. Now, I saw a fracture line here, which was the fingernail. And here it was, you know, I could see a separation line, just like you got in your own fingernail. So I figured, well, I'll pop that off, which I did. And when I hit it, it just popped right off like a scab. I'm serious, it was just like a scab. And I have it here, and it still has the fingerprints on it. Fingerprints start right away. So this was tested, and I mean, right down inside, just dense with blood. And again, I extracted that, and it said excellent quality blood from there and from the lung. This here I can't carry in to show you. As a matter of fact, it's not on my property anymore. This was on my property. I sold the property. It's just off the edge. It's in the other guy's yard. But I have the fingerprints from it. And fortunately, the fingerprints, which you almost don't get any meat with it at all, a little piece of meat came off with the fingerprints. Now let me show you the fingerprints. Here it is. Now, these are the fingerprints. All right, the fingernail was way up here. It went way huge fingernail. Each one of these fingerprints is about the same, well, that's my thumb. It's my left hand. So, if my finger was about that size, as it is there, I put it over here, it's one fingerprint ridge. And that's the kind of fingerprints we have. You see the little sweat pores? See those sweat pores up there? Same thing. And you see this? There's no blood in there. It's just like a piece of rubber. And that's what your grip skin is. This is a specific type of skin. It's on your feet, your soles of your feet, your hands, your palms, and all this stuff. And it peels right off like that. I mean, it just peels right off. It just, when I hit it, it popped right off, just like that. However, fortunately, a little piece like this came off with that, and there's plenty of blood in that. Because, like I said, fingertips are absolutely saturated with blood. You see that? That's what's in your fingertips. They're just absolutely saturated with blood. That's why you can find them everywhere. That and lungs. The lungs are, again, saturated with blood. The blood is the preservative. That's the crazy thing about this. They have no clue about this. Well, maybe they do, but they're hiding it. Now, remember I showed you the grip skin right here? It peels right off like this. Well, this was the 36-inch long fingertip. 36 inches long, one fingertip, 3 feet long. I figured that guy's got to be at least 180 feet tall if it was equivalent to a normal human being now. Now, there's another one I found on my same property here, which is this one here. And this is a left hand. Now, here's what I want you to do. Take your own left hand, put it out like that. Now, where are we on this hand? Down there's a couple of bones that are these bones right down here. All right, and then you have this pad. It's the same pad you have on your hand. Now, that's the bumper pad right there. And it's bumper all the way down here until you get to your small finger. The little finger runs off this way. The thumb runs that way. This right here is right there. All right, you understand? So we're really only maybe up to here and then right across about here. This isn't even the whole palm. It isn't even up to here. Now this is a tendon. Lay it back and you have one right here too. Same place. Runs right down the middle. You see it? And don't forget, this is the other one running off to your small finger, your little finger. Now, you see this silvery stuff? That's the grip skin. See it over here? That just peels off. It's like a glove that's on your hand. See it peeling off? It's what it is. Now, and this was DNA tested too. And the fingertips were CAT scanned. Now, this is the little pincher between, the cleave between the pads of your hand. And this is the grip skin. Now, it's about 3 to 4 feet. It goes, I think, between 3 here and 4 up here or so. I called it a 36-inch hand. But I think it's more like 4 feet up here. However, it doesn't matter. All right, I showed you the palm of the hand here. All right, this is one of the fingertips. It was CAT scanned. I'll show you that in a second. And this is the bone ball, and right up here, right across your knuckle, and that's the bone ball. And the beauty of this is it eroded in such a perfect way. We can see the actual bone here. And the difference between that and the marrow inside. And on this side, it didn't erode completely, so we can see the actual muscle. This is unbelievable. This is like a sectioned off autopsy. Now look at this. This is the tendon. That's the center core of the tendon. And that tendon is one of these that goes this way and that way off of your fingers to make them be able to go to the left and the right. There'd be another one coming this way, but that's all eroded off completely, all the way down to the bone ball. So we don't have any of the muscle anymore over here. All right, you follow me? This side is completely eroded down, like I chipped it down, but I didn't do anything. It was just, I came out of the ground like this. So here's going all the way up over the guy's knuckle. And this is right over the top of his knuckle. And this here comes down to do this. Because of this. Now right there is the abrupt transition where it attaches to the muscle. That's why they break off right in that spot. And this is the muscle that actually weaves around the bone ball to hold everything in place. And I have all the anatomical stuff to show about this. And this died laying flat like that. So everything eroded out of here. And this side eroded heavily, and this side not so heavily. But it died flat on its back. Everything is basically died flat. Just like this, flat as a pancake. It was a great flood, and everything boiled, and the remnants are the mud fossils. And some of them are, this is tiny compared to what some of them are. This is just a puppy. This, my friend, is a hair follicle. That is a hair follicle. It's 2 inches wide. Now you see that? That's this hair follicle. All right, so what are we looking at here? See the little dot in the center? That's the core of the muscle. Every muscle, every tendon has a central core, just like I showed you before. There's a central core on that tendon coming down from that fingertip, which is right here. You see it right there? That's basically the same kind of an attachment as this, which is the same kind of an attachment as that. All right, so what do we have here? Here's the muscle attaching here. That makes your hair be able to stand up on end. And your hair goes up on end. Well, what about this thing? That's nothing but an oiler. That oils up the hair. Now, it's a little higher up than it is on here, but you can see all of that gooey stuff has slid down. It slid down, and here is the actual sebaceous gland laying down now right here, right on the other side of the membrane. So this is slid down, slidden down, and there it is. Now this obviously is the root coming up, and that obviously is the hair shaft coming up. Now this has a flat side on the hair, which makes it a curly hair person, is what I'm told. And when you look at it in a microscope, very interesting, there's two plates. And I still got to look at that a little closer, very interesting. And these two spots right here, that spot and that spot, are the hair papilla, which is the red and the blue is the artery and the vein. Now, you see how transitioned this thing is? Every single thing of it looks like it's the same material, basically, this yellow stuff. This is very extensive nucleophilic invasion and substitution. Nucleophilic, nucleo means the nucleuses of things, the atomic nucleus. They're nucleophilically transitioned. It's nucleophilic transition. And it changes the actual chemistry to be almost exactly what it was entombed in. That's what happened to mud fossils. That's why they're all like the mud. You see here, like this thing here, you look at that and you say, it's just a big glob of mud. No, it's not. What happened was, this is marrow inside here. You see that? That's the calcium. That's the calcium in the bone. Normally, you don't see much bone. This is kind of unusual, but it's not unusual. But anyway, it is what it is. It's here. Now, and that's the tendon, and that is the abrupt transition with the central core. And those are the fibers of the muscle that wraps around the bone. All right, it's beyond belief how fabulously this thing decayed. We can see the muscle, we can see the bone, we can see the tendon, we can see the tendon here, we can see the muscle fibers wrapped around the bone. Now, this was a fingertip, extremely eroded. However, you see this pattern right here? See this pattern? That's the distal phalanges. Now, I don't know if you can see it or not. I can see it from my perspective here, that black. You see that black? That's the pattern of a distal phalanges, which is these bones right here. Basically, it's that. Now, what's coming down here? The vein and the artery down the center here. Here's where the vein, and here's where the artery, here's where the vein side is. And that also is a vein. You can't see it well. In a microscope you can. But this is an artery. Arteries blow out, and blow out, and blow out. And blow out down here. These three and that are connected. That's where the blood comes down. Then it goes through a little webbing and it comes back through the vein. The vein sides clamp off. The other thing you want to see is this little hook. Extremely important. Extremely important, and you'll see in a minute why. Because the same thing is on this one. You see that hook? It's the same thing as that hook. You see that hook right there? I'll show you what it looks like anatomically. And the reason I have this green thing wrapped on here is because this piece here I broke off, which is right next to the bone, so I could see the bone. Well, I didn't break it off so I could see the bone. It was coming off anyway. but it was nice. I could see the bone. And this is a thumb from a right hand. And I can tell you that because this is all the excess. And I'll show you in the CAT scans. See, there's a lot, you just look at that and you think it's a chunk of dirt, but it is not. This right here, actually, again, this eroded so fabulously. You see this little scruffy looking thing at the end? Hold on, let me see if I can bring that closer. You see that little scruffy piece at the end of the thumb? Well, guess what that is? It's this. It sits right on there, and all the little balls in your tendon lock in here. And that's how you can move your thumb and your fingers and all that stuff. Now, I have all the anatomical, everything about this, and I've talked to, trust me, it is exactly what I'm saying it is, and nobody can dispute it. And it's been DNA tested and CAT scanned, and it's human. And all of this came out of the same hole right here, and the hand and all of that stuff. And there's a ton more of it out there. I just haven't picked through the rest of it. I have plenty. So, and I believe this is probably a bone from this same guy. I don't know, a little tiny bone. It's a lot bigger than ours. If it was in a wrist, I mean, it's my whole wrist. So this one here, I estimated him 50, 60 feet tall, something like that. This fingertip, hold on, hold the show, don't go anywhere, coming right back, here we go. What do we got? We got a fingertip, we got your fingertip right here. And it's 7 inches approximately, but it's already eroded quite a bit. So there's there was going to be some more, substantially more to both ends, another, say, ½ an inch. So we got an 8-inch fingertip. All right, so yours, 8 inches, I don't know, well, this is a thumb, so let's go with a thumb. I got 1.25 inches, and this is 8 inches. So I figure 6 times bigger at least. I'm almost 6 feet tall. 6'6" is 36, maybe 40 feet, 50 feet. I don't know, somewhere around there. It's good size, but certainly nothing like this. Now I showed you this, the hair follicle. This thing here is 2 inches wide. Yours and mine are just a few thousandths. So it's got to be at least 500 times bigger than a human one. And if you're 6 feet tall and a human is 500 times bigger, that's over ½ a mile tall. Now, I didn't say this is human. I don't know what it is. But I can tell you what, there would be something in here that would signify some kind of, what kind of creature it was. I'm almost certain of that, because you can get DNA out of almost anything. They're starting to realize it now. I was the first one in the world to have DNA tests done, and I presented all that to Yale, and they suppressed it. Now, why do I say Yale should sue them? Well, let's look up what academic fraud is, first of all. Does it apply? Okay, get ready for this. I asked ChatGPT this question, and they responded this way. Your scenario about having evidence like DNA proven body parts from giant human beings and academia refusing to examine them could potentially raise ethical and legal questions, but it may not directly qualify as fraud. I asked if it was considered fraud. It may not directly qualify as fraud in the legal sense unless these specific conditions are met. What are the conditions? Fraud in legal terms. All right, fraud generally involves deliberate deception for personal or financial gain. Well, remember those words. Deliberate deception for personal or financial gains, for academia to be guilty of fraud. So that's the requirement. Well, intentional misrepresentation. They would need to intentionally misrepresent facts or evidence. All right? That's one. Knowledge of deception. They have to know they are deceiving people. They must knowingly suppress or ignore evidence for financial or reputational gain. This is what we're dealing with Derek Briggs and Yale. Harm. The misrepresentation or suppression must directly harm others, misleading students without significant ethical review, that type of thing. Peer review, they should have peer reviewed it. They should have collaborated. They didn't. They didn't do any of those things. They should have done that to ensure the work was given fair consideration it deserves. Here are some of the steps that they should have taken, and they did not. And now they shall be sued. See, Trump's saying it. He's gonna go after him in education, overhaul the whole thing. Good. Department of Education is going to dismantle it. Good. What education could look like. Maybe it's going to be real. Higher education is scared of a second Trump term. This goes way back to April. They were scared, and they should be scared, because they're just going to cut off this nonsense funding of ridiculous things that when you find out what happened with Yale and me and NASA, you're going to see how devious they are and how deceptive and how much terribly seriously they need to be sued. And NASA needs to go down too, as well as Fermilab. We got to get this under control. I want Elon Musk to get a hold of me. If he's the new czar of efficiency, well, let's talk. And the things I present are not disputable. They can only be ignored, which is exactly what happened with Derek Briggs, and then he took credit for my work. That's the really slap in the face. And then not only did he take credit for it once, then he took credit for figuring out how it was all happened in the first place several years later. Not every single word to me, and all of those emails that I showed you were to him saying, you're a disgrace. And I sent this to the president of Yale, all of them. So don't tell me that they didn't know. It's rotten to the core. And it's time for Trump to act. Now, if I'm telling lies about them, let him come after me and say, oh, no, you're telling lies about them. No, I'm not. I got the emails to prove every word I'm saying. I have all of the things. And this, even ChatGPT puts them in a terrible, terrible light. And when you look back at what was written in ancient history about teachers being false teachers and how their destruction does not sleep because they hate God. That's why they're being false teachers. They cannot stand the fact that evolution is just nonsense, that we all evolved from pond scum. And that's really what Yale is trying to push now. That these mud fossils were just pond scum like things, but up to 3 meters, up to 3 feet long at that time. But they're slimy little creatures, no bones, no nothing, no teeth, no shells. Totally wrong. They know it's wrong, so they're being deceptive. Once you're being deceptive, you're in the fraud area, as far as I'm concerned. You see this? This is also goes into the deception from Yale. I have things from space right here. This is an iron meteorite, a little tiny one. You see it? Magnets stick to it quite easily. It's not completely transitioned to metal. This was biology, and I can absolutely 100% prove that, and this will have DNA in it. It does the catalase test magnificently. It foams like crazy because there's all kinds of catalase in here. Now, they're talking about Mars, watery history. They got a Martian meteorite. Well, how do they know it came from Mars, first of all of this stuff is complete nonsense from these people. It's all designed for their status, their ego, their funding. Now, let's get back to reality here. All right, let me run through some of these pictures. I showed you that fingertip with the little pad, the gigantic fingertip, and it had the pad at the bottom right here. That's that pad that I just showed you from that last clip. Right here. Now, this I showed you was the distal phalanges pattern, and it has the apical tuft would sit on the end. Now, if you could see this, which you probably can't, but there's a bone pattern here that runs right up around here, and this was where the actual bone was. And then the rest was flesh around it. But I know you can't see that. I'd be very surprised if you can. But that's where the bone comes up around the top. And that's where the blood blows out of the end. And here, I don't know if I showed you this or not, but I think I did. Right at the very end, they all have these two little tips. They have one for the red and one for the black, which is the vein. The veins clamp off. That is a vein right there. But it clamps off, so it doesn't squirt its blood out. The artery's totally different. Arteries just blow right out. You see all of them. The whole side blew out. Bloop. And this side stayed not blown out. And that anchor right there is, I'll show you what that is. Because when I first saw it, this confused the hell out of me. I said, what is this? What the hell is going on there? Why would that happen? Well, here's why it happened. Is because of this. Right there. All right, this is at the end of the bone. This is the bone right here coming out. Right there is the apical tuft, which I showed you here. That's this. One of the bone balls is still in, one of the tendon balls is still in here. They fit all over the place. You see them? And then this thing can do all that stuff. These are all little tiny tendon balls coming up here. Now, this created that. See, it locked right in there. That's what created that. So we've just accounted for this, which was a very serious mystery, and this right here, which is the apical tuft. You see it right there? You see the little straps coming out of it? That's this right here. And again, this all came from the same hand. It came out of the same hole right next to each other. So that's an apical tuft. I don't care what anybody says. That's it right there. And it's in so many degrees of erosion that it's just fabulous to be able to see it. Like one completely eroded, this side, right down to the bone. And this side, we still got the muscle, we got the tendon, we got everything. How perfect is that? How fabulous. And this is the bone where it broke off. And the bone ball is right up, well, you see the bone ball right there. And that's what goes right up over your knuckle. And this, if I laid my hand flat like this for a couple thousand years, it would look like that. No, it turned flat like that instantaneously almost. Everything boiled in the Great Flood. I'm sorry, that's Velikovsky recorded it, everybody in history recorded it, and we treated it as just a joke because it was too much for the average mind to absorb, first of all. Secondly, it led to God. I would have never in my entire life thought God was real if I hadn't found this. I was told that people are weak-minded, they're just silly people, they have no clue about life. Life is just here, and it's dust and it's dirt and slime, and I bought into the whole nonsense, which is really, at this point, it's lies. And it's fraud at this point. Now, here's that little pad I said about underneath, like the bone. And the only thing you can see in the CAT scans is the outline of the bone. All right, and that's where the membrane is. Now here's the CAT scan. This is the 2D, is really fabulous. This is what you see normally. You don't see much of anything. Now this is what you see when you put it in the 2D CAT scan. Jesse Garant and Associates did 7 CAT scans for me. 0 charge. They are the most fabulous people in the world. They want this information known, and this goes back 10 years ago, and it was not well researched. Academia just can't deal with this, and they still can't deal with it. That is a tendon right there. That is one of the blood supplies. That's the other blood supply, and there's the other side of the tendon. Tendon, tendon. Blood, blood. Dark white. 2 different states of iron oxides in the blood, because you have an artery and you have a vein. The bone. It's a thumb. You say, Roger, how do you know that? Well, I've shown a million times. If you take your right hand, which is, this is a thumb from the right hand, and you block that off right there, the bone is on this one side straight up, as it is here, and on this side you got a big lump. None of your other fingers do that. Both of your thumbs do that, but the right hand thumb has the lump on the right hand side. So this thumb is just like my thumb, only a smidge bigger, and there's the excess, and here's where the blood runs up. Now don't forget, 2D, outstanding for mud fossils. 3D, not so good, but we could see something. Let me show you the 3D. This is the same fingertip. This basically is the only one that you can tell much from. You see this here? This you can see the blood running up. All right, so there's something to see from this. But this is deep up inside the fingertip, maybe up in here somewhere, where you can't see it. It's just not like a piece of clay. However, down at the end, where you're just barely getting into it, and you're just barely getting into the 3D, maybe that far up into it, you can see the membrane. All right, take your time and look carefully. You see that? That's the membrane around the bone. You see there's two membranes. There's one here and there's one here. So where are we inside that bone? Well, we can see two membranes. So let's go back and see if we can find where we might be. Let's see. Well, we're probably right about here, because we can see this one and that one. And then once we get past that, it just turned into mud. Now, as far as, I got another good shot here somewhere. All right, you see, remember, you see all the tendon and the muscle and all. See the muscle coming around the bone? It's the same thing that I showed you on that eroded bone ball. All right, it was shown quite clearly. Now, what else? All this stuff happened from the Great Flood. That's all I can tell you. There's that one again. Now, again, all of this was presented to Yale University, Derek Briggs, in 2015. Because by that time, I already had my CAT scans done, I had my DNA test done, and I had, in 2015, all this was presented to him. And because I also saw Curiosity rover up on Mars finding mud fossils, gigantic mud fossils, and there was no question. I contacted NASA too, and I have the emails about that. Now what happened, and I believe NASA went to Yale to say, is this guy right? Because then they funded Yale to do the research that I had already done. All right, now check this out. This goes back to 2019, April of 2019. And I was contacting Derek Briggs again, and we were not in good terms at this point. So I said, hi Derek, hope you are well, sir. I opened my own university, Derek. I have 58,000 engaged students and doing quite well. Well, we have 209,000 now. As you graded my work and abilities, basically he did, telling me that I wasn't fit to do this work. I see it fit to grade your work and abilities. Here is a video I put up moments ago. I think you should reconsider your position, but that is your decision. Please say hi to Armand for me. Here is a link to the video. I had hoped we could research this together, and my hand is always extended. And there it remains, waving in the wind. Now, let's see what I had to say about Derek Briggs at this time. Now, this is after quite a few years of contentious going back and forth. And I knew he was being disingenuous. And then I realized he had taken my work and claimed it as his own. And I will show you that too. All right, you see, this was written in response to the minds that were colliding with reality. I wrote Mudfossils and Velikovsky, who received the same response as me, and minds in collision, like Derek Briggs's mind collided with reality. He couldn't handle it, so he decided he would take credit for my research. Now, this paper went out, it's 90 pages long, February of 2016. And this is about the discovery of mud fossils a few years ago, and that was before 2016. I think it was about 2012, right in that area. And I had DNA tests, 3 of them done, CAT scans, all the negative controls, 7 CAT scans. And I claim one was probably around 50 feet tall, the fingertip. The other was probably around 200 feet tall. Chemistry, lab work was all done. I recreated the process. I actually did make mud fossils. I'm being ignored when not attacked because reality is still not a concern in academia. For at least 60 years has been the practice, as was done with Velikovsky's research. Mud fossil specimens I present are physical support for Immanuel Velikovsky. I spelled his name wrong. It's I-M-M. Historical masterpiece of 1950. He wrote about Velikovsky, read and studied and listened to all of the reports around the world and came up with a masterpiece called Worlds in Collision. All right, and that's when we almost got hit by Venus. And it was a great flood. Now, the stories were the same all over the globe about the same events, the same dates observed by many and recorded by eyewitnesses at the time. Now, not only that, a lot of these never had any contact with the other ones. They had the same exact stories. And they all had stories about giants and gods fighting in the heavens, just giant creatures in the heavens. And we always said, oh, they must have been talking about constellations, and they had smoking peyote and all this nonsense. Well, the stories were the same. I mean, you show me one culture that doesn't have giants, dragons, gods, wars, battles in the heavens, good versus evil. Show me one. Show me one. Every single one of them has those in common. Do you think that's just a coincidence? So anyway, I go on to say, the stories were all the same, everywhere. Same story, same time, same day. They all had the same story. We dismiss these recorded historical documents as silly, scary stories, but not at all rooted in reality. Scary stories, yes. Silly, no. Reality, absolutely. Velikovsky was literally attacked. I mean, he was savagely attacked. And the worst one was Carl Sagan. He was just obnoxious. Anyway, so Velikovsky, my hero, Immanuel Velikovsky, who died being considered an insane person, he was intact, and they will stop that right now. Well, that was 10 years ago, and it didn't work out the way I had expected. The academic bullies and book burners are about to be exposed in these pages. Now the fun begins. I wish he was here now. And like I say, he's 99 cents. It's up on Amazon. Mudfossils and Velikovsky and minds in collision. I call this one small step for humankind and one giant leap for the human mind. Okay, this is getting to be fun. I had forgot all about this. Now, so I want to see what's Dale Briggs's abilities. What did I say about him? Okay, it's Roger, Mudfossil University, and this is to Derek Briggs at Yale University and all you other universities. You are fiduciaries, and you are failing at this moment. A fiduciary relationship, one person is in a position of vulnerability, which is the student, justifiably vests confidence and good faith and reliance and trust in another whose aid, advice, or protection is sought in some matter, which is their teaching, so that they can make more money and be able to pay off their student loans and to be able to be successful in life. And they can only do that if they agree to do what the teacher says and to say what the teacher tells them to say and agree to what the teacher tells them to agree with. So, in such a relationship, good conscience requires a fiduciary to act at all times for the sole benefit and interest of the one who trusts that person to act in their best benefits. So that person trusts the teacher to be knowledgeable, to be accepting of new information, to be inquiring, to be a fiduciary, to act in their best interest to secure that they have spent their money, very large amount of money, wisely, so that they can have a better financial future. Now, what I am going to show you puts that in extreme doubt for Professor Briggs specifically, but it seems to be systemic in the academic arena. It not seems to be. It is 100%. Now, at that point, back here, everybody turned me down. I mean, everybody. And when I decided I would go legal, nobody would talk to me about it, because as soon as I mentioned, I was going against Yale, they would click. And now I do have a friend who is a lawyer, and he advised me about this, and it can be done, but I certainly couldn't do it. But somebody like Trump, with all the lawyers he's got, he should be able to do something about this. It's a systemic problem. And he's right. Trump is talking about this. He's saying he's going to shut this whole thing down, straighten it out, sue these people, fine them, and everything else. And he should. There's no reason this should be allowed to continue. It's just, at this point, it's just outright fraud. Now, this is ChatGPT. They know all about what I've been doing. Mudfossils are a term popularized by Roger Spur to describe unusual geological formations that he claims are fossilized remains of biological organisms. And then he goes on, and if my claims were true, virtually everything about our history would change, and about fossilization and everything else. And they are true, and they are supported. All right, so ChatGPT goes through all the things I said about chemical decomposition, and my claims. Spur and his followers argue some rock formations showing patterns, textures, shapes resembling biological features are evidence of ancient life forms. Criticism. Mainstream scientist community generally views these claims skeptically, attributing the patterns of rocks to natural geological processes like erosion, weathering, or mineral deposition. Unusual discoveries. Spur supports his claims by presenting high-resolution images, chemical analysis, and he says reveal the presence of preserved biological materials such as collagen, iron from the blood, DNA, CAT scans, all of that stuff. Now, the implications: if mudfossils were proven to be genuine biological remains, they could challenge conventional understanding of fossilization, geology, the history of life on Earth. Everything, or the entire history has to change. And the sizes of these creatures were ginormously huge. As I showed you, this hair follicle. Obviously everything has to change. Virtually nothing that we were taught. This is skin from a fingerprint. And that's human, and it was excellent quality DNA. It was perfect. And again, this is a hair follicle. I don't know what it's from, but I don't think there's any creature alive with a hair follicle like that. Now, I showed this stuff in so much detail, and of course, Derek Briggs, he just outright was deceptive as far as I'm concerned. You can't possibly see any other way about it. I hounded them. And finally I got pretty obnoxious. Okay, this is actually pretty good. I forgot all about this stuff. This is for me to be wrong and Briggs to be right. This is the sequence of events. Briggs to me, which is Mudfossil University. He says, And I quote, okay, Professor Briggs said this about my research, that the certified autopsy specialist must be wrong. He couldn't possibly be right about the specimens. The DNA tests, 3 of them, done by 2 certified labs using ancient protocols, that couldn't possibly be right. Didn't need to see that. CAT scans, 7 of them, by specimens showing exact anatomy of DNA certified specimens. That can't possibly be right. He didn't need to see that. He could 2D and 3D, and none of this stuff he wanted to see. It just can't be right. So why bother looking at it? See it online, it was all wrong. Recreating the process in my lab, I couldn't have possibly done that, that must be wrong. Biochemistry matches in every, well, not every time, but in most cases, the biological remains in the mud fossils is so perfect that it actually still has the blood and tissues. I will show you that right now. But what his remarks to me was that there was nothing biological that I presented. There was no need to see or inspect anything whatsoever. I was wrong about everything, and I must find someone who understands rocks. That was his last statement to me. You know, in an email. He's never spoken to me. I have an email, and yes, he did speak to me originally, but not at this point. Originally, he talked to me, and the first time I did talk to him, the first words out of his mouth was, "What are you, a creationist?" And I said, "What do you mean by that?" And he said, well, I forget how it went after that, but I realized that Mary Schweitzer had been attacked by everybody, and they just basically destroyed her career too, because she found soft tissues and fossils in 2005, and she was on 60 Minutes showing it, and the next thing you know, they basically destroyed her, and they fired Mark Armitage, who worked with her, because they had found gooey, soft tissues in dinosaur bones showing that they weren't as old as they thought they were. So they said, that can't be true, so we're going to stop you from speaking about it. And they destroyed her, basically, as far as I'm concerned. And last time, well, not the last time, but I did see one thing about her that said, I don't care what they say about me. And that was Mary Schweitzer. No. So he's never spoken to me. I said, here. I tried to call him, but the phone just clicked off as soon as I mentioned who I was. I don't know what happened. So I find it very difficult to believe that Professor Briggs is acting in good faith. And in that case, he is not a good fiduciary. And in that case, there is legal ramifications. And in that case, it is up to a student to pursue that, not me. Oh, by the way, I don't know if anybody's seen this, a systemic look at serial problems, sexual harassment of students by university faculty, Utah Law Review, a serial systemic problem. It seems to be there's a lot of trouble in academia, but you know, who am I? I'm not anyone to point fingers, I'm just trying to get to truth. This particular hand that you're seeing right here is 36 inches wide. It's been DNA certified using the... All right, we've already seen that. All rejected by Professor Briggs without examination. And in the face of all of this undeniable evidence, I see a problem there. I don't know if there's any need to go any further, because I started getting into the female anatomy and all this business. Because this here, you see this? All right, this is what happens in the gut. This is the anatomy of the human gut. And it pinches together here. It's called a linea alba. And it seams together. And when a person is pregnant, a woman is pregnant, that seam breaks open. It's called the linea alba, and it turns into the linea nigra, which is a dark line. Linea alba means white line. It's called a blastula. It's a big round ball at first, and then it caves in, and then it seams right here. This is the different seaming structures. It creates an internal cavity, which is your abdomen, and that is the seam that runs right up through that vagina. So linea alba. This is another vagina. That is the seam in this vagina. They all have them, and they come in enormous. Oh, here's the one. This is the one I want to show you. And this is it's a vagina. Now, this is that line, that little tiny line there. You see it? You see that very, very thin line? that goes right up the middle of everything, which is all biological, and you see the green, it means that there's some kind of edible stuff growing on there, which is blood. And you see the baby's face because she died pregnant. It's a coffin birth. This is the baby's face right here. And this is where it's torn through the tissue of the sidewall. See how nice and clean this is? This one's bumped out. And that's the baby's face, the shoulder, the arm. You see it? That's the baby's face. You don't see that on the other side. All right, and that line is the linea alba, that little tiny thin seam that goes right up the center. You know, and then I go into the fabric mat of the lung and where I took the blood out and how that all happened. And hold on. Now, once again, there is a linea alba line, and this is the mat, and this is probably a linea nigra, which means a brown line. And that, of course, is where the vagina is. We're looking out. And these things are absolutely enormous. Some of them are just stunningly large. I mean, you just have no clue whatsoever. And you couldn't possibly believe it until you saw it, and I explained it. Now, what am I doing out here? I'm saying this is a criminal offense. Is it? Maybe it is. I don't know. It's actually a criminal offense. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm saying, well, what did I say? I say, why wouldn't you ask for your money back? He's refused to talk about any of this. I'd go and ask for my money back. Talked to me for 6 years, and I'm told that really is actually a criminal offense. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what lawyers are telling me. I'm just trying to protect. I talked to lawyers, and they said it's basically a criminal offense if I was right. But nobody's going to go against Yale, so have a nice day. See you later. Now, why is it a criminal offense? I don't know. Maybe I'm totally wrong. Is there any lawyers that could possibly tell me? So they were telling me. I'm just trying to protect the students. So again, let me back up a little bit. Make sure you don't miss my statements. I don't want to make wrong statements. I'm saying, are these failures? Are they failing these things? Let's find out. I'm wrong, but that's what lawyers are telling me. I'm just trying to protect everybody. And I asked Derek Briggs if he would please look into this, and he's refused. So what can I do? I have to give him my own report card, because now I have to start at my own university. Not only that, he took credit for my work. That was the real clincher. When he came out with a report saying exactly what I said, and a year later, after I wrote my book even, and my paper was out on academia.edu, it's virtually identical, same paper. And it talks about heavy-duty silicates, and it talks about the membranes protecting it, and how they preserved in mud. He called it sand. No, it wasn't sand. It was mud. They're mud fossils. And I had been slaughtering him with that for years before that. So it was not a failure to understand. It was deception. As far as I can determine, that's it. So what did he fail? Well, let's find out. This is my report card for Derek Briggs. Mudfossil University on YouTube. We don't take any money. We don't take any bribes. We don't take any tuition. You go out there, you learn, you work with us, and we all work together. Now, Professor Briggs, in geology, we have to give you a failing grade. Archaeology, another failing grade. History, anatomy, biology, chemistry, overall competence. You know, you passed in reading and arrogance. You're, what I'm told, I don't know, this is from lawyers. I don't get involved in this, but they say it's a fiduciary failure and it's a gross criminal neglect, which there are penalties for it, I assume. I don't know. It's not my part of it. I want the truth out there, and as far as I'm concerned, you are the one that stood in the way and told everybody that, you know, I don't know whether they told anybody or not, but they certainly knew about it. They asked me, why didn't I go to you? And I said I did, and you won't look at it, and then they laughed at me. So whether you told them or not, it doesn't matter, because that was, everybody said the first thing. They said, you're right down the street from Yale, take it over to Yale. I said, he won't look at it. So they said, well, you're obviously a moron. I said, well, that could be. But I do have these DNA tests. I do have the specimens. I do have an anatomist test. I do have the CAT scans. I do have the chemistry. I do have the biology. I do have the anatomy. So I think I'm standing on pretty firm ground. And I think it's time to reverse this. And I would say, you academics better turn around quick, because what I'm hearing from the lawyers, and they're contacting me, telling me that there is a case here. I don't want to. I'm never ever going to get involved in any of that. All right, because I just wasn't going to go forward with that, and nobody would go forward with it. They wanted a ton of money up front, and we got to put our time in. It was, everything was about money. From everybody, it's about money. So anyway. Okay, so there's Derek Briggs' report card. He's total failure. So, what do you do about that? You got to stand up to that. And I tried, but now President Trump says he's going to do something about it. Let's see if he does. See, here's another one. This is from Yale University, David Gelertner. Hello, my friend, and Darwin was very wrong. I discovered research soft tissue body fossils. I have DNA certified specimens, giant humans, normal humans, and stone. I would like to speak and get your support if you feel so inclined. I admire your position of truth above peer pressure. Please get in touch. And then I sent him the Mudfossils and the giants. And these kind of things are just stunning. It's unbelievable. Now, he never got back to me. This goes back to 2019. That's 6 years ago. And they just never do. Now, David Gelertner. Let's look at him. All right, here he is right here. David Gelertner. This is from 2024, just a few months ago. 5 years ago, Gelertner gave up on Darwin. 5 years ago, Yale University professor David Gelertner wrote that he was bidding farewell to neo-Darwin evolutionary theory. So that goes back 5 years ago. That's when I contacted him, it appears, was, well, actually, yeah, 5 years ago. And I said, I'm glad to see that you have taken this position. Here is my evidence to support you. Never heard back. All right, now, remember this. This goes back 8 years ago, 2016. But when Curiosity landed on Mars, I saw the Mars crab, the Mars blueberries, the Mars Morse code, everything about Mars, the topography, it was all mud fossils. So I got a hold of NASA. And also Comet 67P, mysterious features they couldn't explain on that too. I got a hold of the European Space Agency. So I got a hold of all of them. And then the next thing I know is NASA went to Yale and gave them a whole bunch of money to study astrobiology on Mars, it appears to me, or wherever. They studied and they said, yes, this exceptional preservation happens, but it's only from slimy little creatures, and it happened a long, long time ago. No, I don't, and they just obscured the whole thing, made it sound like it was just sand, but they did say it was a worldwide event, which is a flood. So, you know, it was really deceptive. Very, 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 very bad look to this. Now, this is from 2016, at the end of 2016, November, when Yale took credit for my work, and this is Derek Briggs, the guy I gave all of my stuff to, and he rejected it. And now he's claiming this was the first earliest fossilized complex macroscopic multicellular, in other words, the first creatures. However, he claims they were just soft tissue. There was nothing, and I'll show you the easy read. But he says they're exceptionally preserved soft body creatures. Many of fossils are whatever that word is, preserved as casts and molds in sandstone. No, they are in Edakara style. No, it's mud fossils. And they were in mud. Mud is the one. And then they go to the silica biomineralizers. He talks about how the silica saturated state of the oceans just all of a sudden popped up. And here's the other article about it that talks about all of this. Now they got 338 views. Nobody shared it. So nobody even knows about this, basically. And they only had a very few views when I started mentioning this, and people have been coming up here and looking at it, apparently. But they have been sort of suppressed this. And this is exceptional preservation of soft-bodied creatures. Now, this is when they touted it in their newspaper on Yale. Let me open this up a little bit. All right, now, they're talking about this Edakara biota. They just gave it a name. It's these creatures, and they're saying that we lived in a warm, slimy petri dish. All right, and these were the first creatures that lived. Now, and it was a quirk in the chemistry of the ancient oceans. That was the silicon from the siliceous ooze that covers the ocean floor. It's still there today, but it stays there. It's 2.5 times heavier than water, so it doesn't come up. It only came up because we got hit by Venus almost, and everything went, and the Earth literally stopped, apparently almost stopped, and all the waters swirled and created, it actually boiled the oceans and created these three layers: the red bed, the gray clay, and the black cap. Because that was all fallout, the black cap that covered everything. The whole Earth is the same thing, and it's worldwide. They say it's worldwide right here. Somewhere. Hold on one second. Here it is right here. This strata worldwide. It's worldwide. 3 layers. How the fossils preserved remains controversial. No, I told them exactly how they preserve, and I know exactly how they preserve. And they say it was 540 million years ago, and it took 40 million years for these layers to form. Oh, here it is right here. Found worldwide. Worldwide. 3 layers. How did it come worldwide in 3 layers? No. It was one impact. And the MIT now says that the oceans boiled at some point in time. And at that point in time, all the creatures that had flesh, the flesh boiled off and left the body parts that were covered with fascia. I called it fascia facilitated fossilization. And I sent that to Derek Briggs long before he published this paper. And it was virtually the same paper. Now, they say they're outright bizarre in appearance and don't resemble any organism alive today. Were they some sort of failed evolutionary experiment? Yes, they were. And that points to God. But they just sort of glaze over that. But they were all entirely soft-bodied. They lived before shells, teeth, bones, any of that stuff existed. So they just say they're like jellyfish. No, they weren't. They were all the things I'm showing. Now, they said the oceans during the time were rich in dissolved silica, just like I just said, coming up from the siliceous ooze. And they say it transformed animals quickly into rock. It could have happened in even hours or years rather than the usual time frame of thousands of millions of years, they say. No, it doesn't take that long. They say these soft-bodied creatures were rapidly buried by sand. No, it was mud during underwater storm events. It was underwater boiling the creatures, and their flesh boiled off and settled as the red bed. It was just red flesh is the red bed, red flesh. Process is cementing the sand grains. Forget about the sand grains, that's all nonsense. And they say it created casts, and that's the only reason, otherwise it would have rotted away. Well, it was nucleophilic substitution and invasion. Look it up at Yale. You people need to do some anatomy, you need to do some chemistry, you need to do some history, some geology, and even quantum. I contacted them about quantum too. I contacted Professor Shankar. The first thing that comes out in the quantum physics, I take all these courses everywhere just to see what they say, not necessarily to learn anything from them, mostly just confront them, and I did. And I said, the first words out of his mouth is, we don't understand quantum, just say what I say and everybody will think you're smart. Basically, that's what he said. You know, he didn't say in those exact words. He says, just say what you say, what I tell you to say, and that's the best I can hope for, and then you'll confuse everybody. That's basically the way I took it. I'll show you what he has to say. But at this time, look at this. Now, again, Derek Briggs. The paper was co-authored by Yale professor associate Derek Briggs, who is Evelyn Hutchinson Professor of Geology, Geophysics, Curator of Invertebrate Paleontology, Yale Peabody Museum, National History. Now, listen to this. And where do they get the money from? The research is supported by the National Science Foundation, which is us, Earth Sciences, Postdoctoral Fellowship, a grant from the American Philosophical Society. I don't know who pays for that. And now listen to this one. A NASA exobiology grant, a NASA postdoctoral fellowship, and the foundations of Complex Life NASA Astrobiology Institute. You see all NASA. Why are they getting involved in fossils, in mud fossils? Because I told them the mud fossils are all over Mars. And this was exactly, well, it was 2014, it was earlier than this. And Yale put out this paper in 2016. Exactly the same paper I put out. Now, I had contacted NASA about this. The only thing I can think is that they got a hold of Yale and said, look into this and see if this is right. And they said, yeah, these things do fossilize in that manner, exceptional preservation. I'm sure they didn't talk about Mars. I don't know what they were talking about. But they funded Derek Briggs, who refused for years to engage. Then, in 2016, literally took credit for my work. And then in 2018, he takes credit for how the process works, mud fossilization. I just ran into this yesterday. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. Look at this. Search for Burgess Shale type fossils. A mineral blueprint for finding Burgess Shale fossils. Yale University, funder NASA Astrobiology, NASA Earth, Space Sciences, who knows what else. And they claim to have found this mineral blueprint for finding Burgess Shale type fossils. Well, let's look into this from what their paper is, because they have papers about this written here. This is Yale from 2018, February 2018. Now this is Derek Briggs taking credit once again. Let's see what he's taking credit for this time. Now this is not widely understood. This is on Yale Campus News. This is from 2018. I just ran into this a couple of days ago. That Derek Briggs, again, I somehow was putting in his name and it came up all of a sudden this. And I said, holy smokes, what's going on here? It's a mineral blueprint. In other words, what's in the minerals for finding Burgess Shale type fossils. Burgess Shale type fossils. Well, what are those? According to a new study, scientists may be able to use a distinct mineral signature to detect sites with fossils that preserve evidence of soft tissues. And this is what they're looking at here. Listen to this. A burrowing profidulid worm from the Cambrian Burgess Shale in British Columbia, 508 million years old, is about 8 centimeters long. Boy, I got this figured out. This is their big discovery. And they're saying that they can tell what things are by the type of minerals. And I don't disagree with that, but you can have the same creature in all kinds of different mineral variations. It depends on what it was entombed in, because it's going to be nucleophilically invaded and there will be substitution that'll happen. So one time it'll be igneous rock, the next time it might look like sandstone, the next time it might be metamorphic looking. It depends. Sometimes they turn into opal. A heart actually can turn into exactly opal because of the metals stabilize the heart. And I mean, any body tissue can turn into opal, and they are all body tissues, opals. There's some form of life that has turned into opal due to the extreme silicates, number one, and number two, extreme amounts of transition metals, which are blood. They're in the blood. And they're all different colors. That's why they turn into spectacular colors. And they're all charged. And that means they have an affinity to bond with something. So they come in and they find, say, anybody need a +2? Anybody need a +1? Anybody looking here for a +3? And they find them, and then you get green, you get blue, you get red, you get all different colors depending upon the type of tissue and its requirement to become stable. How many bits and pieces do you want? It's really very, very simple. All right, here it goes right here. The Burgess Shale similar deposits provided the basis for a wellspring of scientific research. Well, I'm going to tell you what, I exceed this by light years. In a new study published in the journal Research at Yale, Oxford, and Pomona College suggests the sedimentary rocks that contain these fossils carry a specific signature, which can be used to find other Burgess Shale type deposits. This discovery is important because it will help us to narrow the search for exceptionally preserved. Now, this is in quotes. It's important because it will help us narrow the search for exceptionally preserved fossils in thick sequences of Cambrian, Precambrian rocks which harbor critical clues to the early evolution of animal life on Earth. End of quote, said co-author Derek Briggs, Yale Hutchinson Preservatory, Geology and Geophysics, and curator at Yale Peabody Museum of Natural History. This is the guy. And guess what? They changed the name of geology. They changed the name because it's not geology anymore. Now it's earth sciences or something. And they show a picture of a mud fossil where they changed the name. They realize this. They're going to have to ease their way into this, but I want Trump to sue him. I want him absolutely to sue him. You see, they are really lowlifes. The researchers identified a mineral signature that enabled them to predict with 80% accuracy whether a particular sedimentary rock is likely to contain Burgess Shale type fossils. In addition, listen to this, the researchers said their findings may have applications beyond our own planet. I already have told NASA that's why they gave them the money as far as I'm concerned. Mars probes and other space missions looking for evidence of life on other planets could use the mineral blueprint in the search for types of rocks that might be more conducive to preserving delicate, decay-prone fossils. These are the ones that all paid for it. NASA Astrobiology, NASA Earth, Science Foundation. They paid for this, and we're paying them to do this research, which I showed long ago, and they should have. I mean, it's really a disgrace, absolute disgrace that they're doing this to us, and Trump has to jump in on this. I mean, I can't believe he won't, but I can't get through to anybody. Not a single person will contact me back. For what reason? I don't know. I have 209,000 subscribers, and I don't get that many hits, and I think somebody's got their fingers on the buttons here. So if I don't get Trump to do something, and get Joe Rogan or somebody to step up, I can't get anybody in the government. There's nobody to talk to me in the government from anywhere. No universities, nothing in the government. Fermilab, I try to get a hold of them about their research on light research, and they have me blocked. I can't contact them at all. And we're spending billions of dollars on something that's already been done again. All of this stuff has been done, and we are being just taken to the cleaners by these people. Absolutely taken to the cleaners. And here it is. We accelerated light. And right there, that white stuff should be electricity. Basically, the stuff you put in your battery. It has no weight whatsoever. You see that explosion? That's a subatomic nuclear explosion, literally. And if you can do that through the laser, through here, and harvest this down into there, we could walk around with free electricity in your hand. That's the electricity right there. And you got to keep the black particles back and let the white come through. And that's exactly what we did in our experiments. And I cannot get Don Lincoln at Fermilab to talk. They should shut that place down. It is just a gigantic boondoggle waste of money. And this has been 10 years with him too. You cannot get through these people. All right, so don't forget now. This is all paid for by NASA. NASA Astrobiology Institute is all funding. NASA Earth and Space Sciences, National Science Foundation, Yale Institute for Biospheric Studies, Yale Peabody Museum. All of this stuff is money that, a lot of it is government money. It's your money and my money. And I think Derek Briggs and Yale were obligated to look at my stuff and not take credit for it. Because now he's taking credit for it. He says he's figured out the blueprint. Well, I already know the blueprint. And I've already explained the blueprint to him. And there is no real one blueprint. He's wrong again. It's never going to get right working with these people here at Yale, especially Derek Briggs, not doing his job. All right, you see, this is why I'm upset. This was to NASA. This was in 2016, but this is January 2016, so this is just after 2015, and I had all my work done. And I contacted Michael Zelensky at nasa.gov with all my evidence, showing the DNA reports and all this stuff. And I'm a fossil researcher, and I sent him all this stuff. I says, as a scientist, please do not dismiss this. Please. I have physical evidence, multiple available specimens. These have had 3 DNA tests, 7 CAT scans, experts, chemistry, lab recreation of the presentation, process and documentation and videos. Please contact me. No, I don't think he ever did contact me. That's just the way they are. Now, that's NASA. Now, I had contacted them in 2014, and I kept trying and trying. I never got to hold anybody. So I just kept trying. But this is 2016. Now, at the end of 2016, don't forget this. This is January 2016. Now, what is Yale's report? This is where I reported all this stuff, the physical evidence of life in the rocks, DNA tests, and humans. And I talked to him about the same stuff as on Mars. And Yale, of course, at the end of the year, so this is January 2016, November 2016, Yale issues their report, paid for by NASA. All right, this is October 2016, funded by you and me from NASA, 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 NASA. This is not right. I hope Trump jumps in on this. I can't fight these people. Nobody would stand up for me at all. Nobody, zero. And especially when they found out it was about Yale. Oh, you can't go against those people. I said, well, I can see that. But somebody should stand up. Now, the only person I know of that's got enough cayunes is Trump. And can he handle these people? I don't know. He's got enough lawyers, because trust me, they got the same thing. And I sent it to everybody. I didn't just send it to Briggs. I sent it to, I forget his name, but he's the president. I sent it to their legal department. I sent it to Lydia Tarhan and all these other authors that he's standing behind, saying he's the co-author and he's a big shot behind all of this stuff. And he had discovered all this. He didn't discover this. I discovered it. And he's taking credit for it. So this was taking credit for soft tissue fossilization. They figured it out, which I did, and reported it to him before that. Okay, academia will not allow you to publish anywhere in any of their journals unless they want you to say what they want you to say. So, but academia.edu is a special case. They let you publish up there, but very few people see it. Although I actually got a lot of hits, actually. I got 757 followers. I got 45 papers up on there. And this was one of them that I put up, Fascia facilitated fossilization. This I sent to Yale, to Derek Briggs, and I said, here is the process. It's not hard. It's a couple of minutes read. This was in 11 of 2015. It's talking about fascia. And very few people had any idea about it. And I claimed that fascia was what caused this stuff to fossilize, and nobody could understand how these soft tissues could fossilize. So I try to explain about the fascia coating the soft tissue and protecting it in wet, platy polar silicates. And it had to be silicates, and they had to be wet and platy and polar. That's what causes them to actually encapsulate the thing. Now, and here it is right here. Fascia is the coating on every fiber of your entire cellular structure. It's the web of life. Ancient times it was called tunica. It's a cloak around everything. Fascia has a job to do. It protects you and separates every tissue, and it does it well during your lifetime. And guess what? If you die and are buried quickly in wet, platy polar mud, and you stay wet and compacted in fine mud, the fascia does not even know you're dead. It thinks it's just flesh, and it keeps protecting you. That's what these things are. They keep protecting. They don't even know you're dead. It's the cool. I mean, I'm just kidding, but it actually seals the contents of these bags, and then they can still infiltrate and stabilize. And it's done with these transition metals and silicates primarily. The silicates are very stabilizing, and the transition metals give them the colors and all that stuff. Now, it's the cause of mud fossils. Mud fossils are exact copies of the original creatures, soft tissue, the whole 9 yards. And it's separated on these fascia and skin separation planes. This is a separation zone. You go into there, you're inside the lung and the alveoli. It died flat in the flood, and it's flat like a pancake. And that's because this has all that coating on here. It's the fascia. And nobody even paid any attention to it back then. All right, so it says the fascia protects every bit of you from invasion. And it's invasion. Cancer is invasion. And you have every single organ in your body can be invaded, and it's a special type of cancer. What does that tell me? That tells me every organ has a special type of fascia, which is a special type of chemistry in that bag that protects you from acids or salts or whatever it is. So anyway, that's a whole other issue. But this is an offshoot of mud fossils. There's so many things I've learned from mud fossils. They're absolutely incredible. So it separates everything. Now, all fascia is made of collagens and kerogens. It's a fabric. It's this fabric. It's creating fiber and elastins in sheets that coat everything. It wraps everything individually, so they're all in their own bag, and then comes together as one giant system. This is the key. It's a fluid-filled network. There's over 20 types of collagens. Every one of them can protect you from something different, salts, acids, different types of chemistry. So they're made of 20 different, and I think there's 28 they're saying now, of collagens, and then kerogens. Some protect from acids, other from caustic, other mineralized for strength. The variety is amazing. These fibers are infused with silicon. All right? Silicon is the key. Tissues in your body are varied and many. Some vascular tubing completely impenetrable, and connective tissues are highly mineralized. Connective tissues, that's your tendons. Skin has 50 times the silicon as other tissue. Skin. Silicon carbide is the fossil version of skin with a 9 on the hardness scale, which means hard and grippy. That's your grip skin, not normal skin. Some normal skin is kaolin clays. Now, mud fossils contain all body parts, and each is the product of fascia-facilitated fossilization. Fascia is part of the connective tissue. It's the covering of everything. Invests itself in bundles at certain places in the body. That's the spurlocks. And they glue together. And these investment sites correspond to ancient acupuncture points quite closely. I did this long ago, I can't remember, but I did look. You see, there's a million acupuncture points. And I think it's where these organs lock into the body. And it may have something to do with the fluids that flow through there or something. And when you put a pin in there, you're going to stimulate a little bit of activity going on. You're going to create some kind of inflammation, which is a response. Your body might do something, who knows. The pins go in there and they do something. And usually it's got something to do with a little bit of inflammation, which sends some of your lymph fluids in there to see what's going on, I guess. Now, so then I also say fascia is a part of the connective tissue, invests itself in bundles in places in the body. Yes, these are the bundles that attach every organ into the body. It says the investment sites correspond to the acupuncture. It's now suspected by me that fascia connective tissue may be fiber optic. They're little tiny little fiber tubes, and they connect to every single cell in your body. Fascia was thought to be mere packing material and virtually inert. It has long been ignored as a subject of research. Nobody even looked into it. When I was looking into it, nobody even knew a clear clue about it. And as a matter of fact, in 2018, they finally did write a paper almost identical to this paper about fascia is now the biggest organ in the body. All right, so recently, however, there's been new equipment allows viewing of the fascia as it does its job. Once again, in many experiments, there was totally unexpected results. This is something you never could believe. Fascia is a tubular fluid-filled fabric network. Tubular fluid-filled fabric network. Instantly reconfigures itself if it's damaged or pulled apart. And it can actually damage and pull itself apart in response to an injury. Now, it appears as if a fiber optic wired network is redirecting the broken fibers and wires by itself. Somehow it's sending signals to these little tiny wires, because I can show you when you get invaded, it just turns into a flood of these little wires. They just open right up and send out all the fluids, and something's directing that. It just didn't happen by accident. Now, I believe the fascia is the fiber optic style network in creatures. It connects to every cell's complete system. I feel this is logically the wiring for send and receive communications. It appears fascia may be much more than simple fuzz, as doctors often referred to it. There was a guy from Werner Klinger from the University of Ulm has done some excellent work on fascia. And water has recently shown to have memory, which is basically just to where it came from. And I also feel quantum numbers, possibly from folded proteins, are the source of program codes. This is a whole other area in the bacteria and viruses actually programming bacteria. So there's a lot to be figured out here. Water having memory, folded proteins in the water and the codes. Now, as a component of support and posture, fascia is also suspected to be the source of many pains, and that's absolutely certain. This is the approach that science is taking to fascia. They're talking about it as to be science, sports injuries and so forth. Medical science interested in life, not fossils. How does the system work in the life process? How to detect and repair this as a system? My approach in studying fascia is somewhat different. I analyze fossil fascia. I look at the chemistry. How did some fascia turn into certain types of coatings and other ones turned into something else? I have so many different coatings, it's unbelievable. Mostly they're all silicates, basically, the coatings. And then inside you get into all kinds of different materials. They could say sedimentary, metamorphic, igneous, and all these different ones. Crystal. It just depends on where the rock was, or where the body part was, and what it was surrounded in. Now, so I say, what can we explore? How are these rocks formed? What causes the elements, metals, and such to concentrate? What are the steps in sublimation and solvomorphism, which is where things change? What's the process that creates fossil fuel transition, results in organic compounds and volatiles? Where do we get our oils and gases from? How does the pH, the acidic level, affect the process of fossilization? What effect does wet soil, which is spontaneous electrical potentials, which are telluric currents. They happen just continuously. Light comes down and creates actually electricity in the ground as it enters the ground. They're called telluric currents. They're not strong, but they are around. What does that have to do with fossilizing things as they hit and move through the stuff that's on the surface of the earth that's no longer alive? What does that do? All right, what's the process of decomposition and purging of fluids? How does that happen? How does the chemistry react during death? What's the molecular structure of different bio areas in the body, like connective tissues versus lungs? All right, what were the conditions of burial? How were they entombed? What forms of chemical invasion are at play? In other words, were they near the lungs and the kidneys or the heart or the poop or whatever? How does tissues form layers and how do they separate and transition? A lot of that has to do with the polarities of the transition metals, the magnetic moments. What's the process creating voids and vugs and these holes in lungs and so forth? Like this lung right here. That's a lung. Right, well, these are voids and vugs that have come out in some kind of a condition. It depends if it was out and open and fluids ran through it, or if it was up on a high spot or a low spot, or it was in the mud, or near a kidney, near a lung, near a heart, a lot of blood, a lot of urine, a lot of poop. What was it next to? Because that's what's going to affect the final outcome. Because this is a lung, and so is that. This one's like brand new, and this one isn't. And the reason is this was in some other chemistry, and it flushed it. This one just sealed it, and it was perfect. And I have other ones that are in all different states of transition, so let's just get past that. And I keep asking all kinds of questions, and all the rest of the stuff, I closed up all of those links, so forget all that stuff. But see, all these things are all my different papers about fascia and solids, liquid fascia, reconsidered a model of biotensegrity. Is that my paper? No, this is somebody else. Jack Sharkey. Yikes. So don't forget now, this is January in 2016. It's a brand new year, 2016. And I contacted NASA. This is to go into Michael Zelensky, nasa.gov. And I asked him about this, and I talked to him. Well, I didn't talk to him. He never contacted me back, I don't think. But I tried to explain that the Curiosity mission was finding biology on Mars. And then I was very shocked to see that same year, a little later, by October, Yale released a paper that the Mudfossils were real, and the people that paid to get that research done was NASA, exobiology, NASA postdoctoral, NASA astrobiology life. Why would NASA do this? The same year after I just contacted them, as I showed you, I had contacted them, January 2016, the end of January of 2016, they put out their paper. Yes, Roger was right. They don't talk about Mars anymore. And they don't talk about creatures. They say, oh, those were just jellyfish, NASA, don't worry. So they took their money, and Derek Briggs, I can't believe he could be that incompetent that he didn't take into account my research, the DNA, the CAT scans, the specimens. By this time, I had all that done, and I reported to him, and he reported back, oh, no, those are just rocks, and then took credit for this type of fossilization, calling it some new name, some silly name, and then taking credit for the process that makes this fossilization, which is this blueprint for finding Burgess Shale. This is just total nonsense. I know exactly what causes all of them, and it's nucleophilic transition. But again, NASA, they're paying Yale to do this. I want Trump to take care of this and fix this up. This is a mess. That's a mess. All right, and this is going on forever, I know, but this was what I sent about the Mars crab. They said, well, the Mars crab, they're looking at this thing here, and then they said, oh, that's just paradiola, forget it. And, well, what is it? They could never explain it. These are muscle sarcomeres. This is connective tissue in blocks, and the red stuff is the powdery fluid that pulls it in and out. That's an artery that sends the red blood down to service this, and that's the vein that brings the black blood and blue in the body back, and that is where it came from. This is a NASA picture. Okay, you see this? That's where that came from. This is sarcomeres, and here's what sarcomeres look like anatomically. All right, these are what they look like. It's exactly what you saw. Now, you want to see something even better than this? It's still up on Mars. Remember, all these little lines, the red stuff just erodes out, and you end up with these little blocky lines. And this erodes out, too. Any of the dark stuff erodes out. Think of it that way. If you were missing all of the dark stuff, you're going to end up seeing this. It erodes a little bit in the center, erodes out the edges, and all of this stuff erodes. And then on Mars, it just turns into powder. There is no moisture, there's no rain, so there's no rivulets whatsoever. That's how I know 100% certain it's Mars. Everybody's, oh, no, that's up on Greenland. No, please don't do that here. Go somewhere else you're going to bother them with that stuff, because I show it is on Mars. And you want to see what Mars can really look like? I got to find it. It's around here somewhere. Which is the really, really bloody tissue up on Mars. Hold on a second. You see that? That is exactly. They're saying this was continually over millions of years this was laid down up on Mars. No, absolutely not. That was from a gigantic flood, and this is a creature's body.
Roger?
Yep. Okay, little interruption there, but we're back in action now. As I showed you, these are sarcomeres, and these are the connective tissue parts, and they erode down here and a little bit in the middle, and then this is the runoff of just the red spots, the red areas dust off because of, they're just dry, and they just dust out of here, and there's a lot of just sandblasting, basically. Wait till I show you the Morse code. But remember, there's not one single rivulet in here. There's no runoff whatsoever of water. This is just dust. It's just dust. And Mars has no water to speak of on, that they can see. So that's Mars, and it's sarcomeres, and those were the sarcomeres you see here. Same stuff. Exact same stuff. Mars is the same as Earth, and here's what it looks like on Earth. You want to see some stuff on Earth? Same stuff. You see that? That's skin. This is Huntington Beach, Huntington Cliffs in the United Kingdom. These balls and these balls, the same sort of stuff, only these are in the ocean, and they just eroded from here, and they're being fed on by some kind of sea moss, the moss that's in the sea. Now, so what am I saying? I'm saying this is skin. This is the flesh right under the skin, which is invested with a bazillion of these balls. And as it erodes from the ocean going, the balls simply fall into the mud, which is the actual clay and the flesh. So the flesh turns to mud, the balls lay in the mud, whatever kind of seed thing is growing here seems to be that there's something in these balls and in the blood of these balls that it's there, and it's, as soon as they're exposed, it starts to grow. I can't believe that every single one of them takes on the same type of moss at the same time instantly, and that's exactly what's happening. These are not stromatolites. These are these same kind of balls. Now, here's what happened though over in the Moki marbles in Utah and Arizona. These, all of the fleshy stuff eroded away. So all of that stuff had eroded. The balls were just laying around there. And then over the course of the next thousands of years or so, all of the little creatures ate everything up, and they just dried out and they turned into stone. You know, well, actually in this case they're almost like metals. There's some kind of exotic stone. Now, underneath this is the basement layer of skin. Now on Mars, they have exactly the same thing. As I reported to Mars, you have Moki marbles up there. They are tendon enthesis. They are these things right here that are in your skin, right under your skin area is this, all of those little floppy things. So you can pull your skin this way and that way, and they'll all come back to where they're supposed to be. And this is their representation of them, is this. The balls are anchored and they have straps. And I show my belt all the time, and it's the same straps. So this is just the mat of the skin just below the surface, which is this skin, and then the mat of these balls just below the surface, so that the fleshy stuff can move around and come back. And this is completely eroded. This is eroding. Now let me show you in fresh water. This is salt water. All right, and they grows this brown looking moss, but every single one of them has it. Not one is missing. How could that possibly be unless it's part of the original ball? And it has to be, and I can't account for it. I'd love to figure that one out. All right, hold on to your hats, because I just showed you saltwater balls. Now here's your freshwater balls. Now look at how many there is, and that's because it's skin. I showed you how many balls there is in skin. And don't forget, this is skin. This is nothing more than this right here. That's where all those balls are coming from. All right, you with me on this? All of those balls I just showed you are just like this. Now, every single one of them is green, 100%. And look at them. They're all up here. They're all down the coast. They're everywhere. Look at how many there is. Every single one, 100% of them are covered with the same moss. Why? Why do we have no naked balls? Why are all our balls fuzzy? There's moss on there. How did that moss get on there? Now I have rocks here that have moss in them. It just lives inside the red blood. There's still red bloody stuff on these. Now the reason these are growing so well and they're not like the Moki marbles is because they were frozen. It's just like throwing a steak in your freezer, and then all of a sudden one day it starts to thaw out. It starts to grow bacteria. Well, this is almost like growing bacteria on food. It's growing on these balls. It's growing every single ball. This has got me blown away. You explain it to me. You figure it out. You say, why is this one and this one, that one, every one of them the same? Why? How could that happen? Is it like a plague? No, it's got to be something that's coming from that ball. It literally has to be. I can't see any other possibility. You think that one over. Give it a lot of thought, because if you can come up with something, I'd sure as hell like to hear it. Now check this out. This is just so ultra cool. This is skin. Remember I showed you the balls and the straps? Here they are. that strap is stretched because the skin is pulled, it's pinched here. That's a wrinkle, and that's a wrinkle. And that's where it's stretched. See, it's stretched all the way along this whole ridge. And remember I told you about being sandblasted? Look at this. This is up on Mars too. This is a NASA picture, and this is good size. Because the creatures were gigantic. Look at this. This is like somebody just dusted it off. Just barely dusted it. And that's because these are the balls. The balls are tough. The straps are not as tough, and the skin is weak. So here's the erosion process. All the skin and so forth was really like sandblasted off, as far as I'm concerned. And the stronger structures below, the straps and the balls remain. Now, on the rise, here you're not getting too sandblasted, so it's down and there's not a whole lot of action going on. But where it's sticking up, it's a lot more erosion is happening there. And of course, this was stretched out too. That's the strap. It's one of the straps. Identical to my belt. I know, it sounds just insane, but it's true. It is true, my friends. Okay, I think I showed you the wide shot of the interstitium up, well, it's called the Mars Morse code. And this is what I'm going to say is that skin fabric. And the long fibers and the balls, this is the scrunched up skin. Okay, so let's look at it carefully. This is the scrunched skin. This one here as well. This is normal pattern skin. This is stretched skin. All right, so you're familiar with the different locations. Now, let's take a look at this skin here, right up in this area. This is fine. You see it all patterned out here? The balls are all over the place. You don't see them all that well until you pull, and then you see the balls are on the end of the straps. Now, I have something in my microscope right now, and I'm going to show you to you right now. So don't forget what you're seeing here, balls and straps. All right, so what do we have up here? What do we have there? All of those black things are the balls. All right, those are the balls. And all in between, all of the brownish looking stuff is the straps. And you say, well, those don't look like straps. Well, here's the first of all, this is tanned, split cowhide. However, let me show you where the straps are. This is just the belt itself, the back of the belt. And it's flattened out and rolled and tanned and all that stuff. Now I'm going to go over to where the loop goes through. And you're going to see what happens. There it is right there. You see the little strands? Those are those straps. Every strap, every ball has a strap. You say, oh, there's only a few of them. Well, let me show you something where my regular belt loop was. Hold on. Stay with me, don't go away. I'm coming back today. Hold on, here we go. This right here is where you really see some action. See it? This is the one that I used. Now, every one of these is a fiber, and every fiber has thousands, literally thousands of fibers in every one of those little fibers. And this is just the very edge of my belt loop. You see that? Every one of these balls has a fiber. You just don't see them until you stretch them and pull them. And right at that belt loop, there's a little stretching and pulling every now and then. I'll put on a couple extra pounds, and you're going to be pulling and stretching. But every ball has a fiber. Just as, whoops, holy smokes, that all fuzzy. Why does it do that? Oh, it's fuzzy up here. Never mind. Down here, this is up on Mars. It's a Mars Morse code. You should look it up. Same stuff. And that is the same stuff as this stuff here, which is the interstitium. Right there. All that gooey stuff, the balls, the straps, same as up on Mars. And here they are here, and here they are after eroded, and here they are eroding. And all the balls happen to have some sustenance in there, and I cannot think of any possibility other than that green stuff is built right into that ball. It's there just waiting to come out and start to grow. You think of it. You figure it out. Like I say, I want to know. Inquiring minds want to know. Okay, I think it is best to leave it at this. These are all the emails from Yale, from NASA, and I have a ton of them from Fermilab too, which I also have issues with. And it's because we can accelerate light, and we may be able to get free energy, and they won't allow us to be spoken to there. And I am blocked from commenting at Fermilab, who I pay to be open. And that, I think, Trump is going to take care of too. That's got to be completely overhauled and just shut down. There's no, we could do this, what they're doing on a tabletop, much better. Well, just like this right here. That's light accelerating. That's not like slowing down. That's light accelerating. That's not allowed in physics. Dipole electron flood theory is physics. That's the new physics. Dipole electron flood theory. And here it is right here. Dipole electron flood theory. This is what a proton really looks like. All the dark matter goes to the center, and that is the dark matter they've been looking for. It's in the inside, and all we ever see is a glowy thing coming back at us. So we didn't know it's there. We're standing on dark matter right now. These things have no mass whatsoever, so the only thing that has mass is down inside. But we're standing on this pillow of electrons that is surrounding all of the dark matter. We just never saw it. Light is half dark matter. All right, that's the anatomy of a proton. It's not just one big plus and a tiny little negative. All right, which would be hydrogen. Now, this is the only two particles that exist. The only two. That's all there is, and this is the new atomic model. These two particles exist, and they can exist separate from each other, which we did. They normally exist at least together like this. Normally they're two back to back. It's a photon. This is just heat. When you get up in a big ball of them, then you have your proton. It changes everything. Redshift, space-time, space chemistry, heat, light, everything has changed. And it's a new atomic model, so everything has to change. Literally everything. All the isotopes, how they break down, and the half-lives and the enzymes, all that is now explained elegantly because of dipole electron flood theory. Gravity is nothing more than the dark particles collecting to the center coated in white. The Earth is coated in white particles, which is heat, and the white particles have the heat. The black particles in the center here, they go into the Earth and they are cold. They're cold particles. They don't have any heat, but they're mass. The Earth is growing. All the dark particles are coming out of the sun. They're hitting the Earth. They're making the Earth grow. Not growing enormously big. I actually did a calculation on how many square meters there were on the Earth and the average radiation level and how many electrons are in the average amount of electricity that's being generated and all that. I went through a crazy thing just to see. And it's growing. There's just no question about it. It's growing. But our real problem now is we're expanding our atmosphere, which is scrubbing through space. And outside of our atmosphere, way out of the ionosphere, it's almost 3,000 degrees. That's just... And we're expanding, because every time you burn something, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's what's destroying the Earth, to be perfectly honest with, is expansion of the gases. That is global warming. That's why weather patterns are shifting. There's more push against mountains here and there, against valleys and streams. It's crushing the atmosphere down, and it's creating all this turbulence and tornadoes and hurricanes and floods and condensed water patterns. And it's very easily understood once you understand that the expansion of the gases and the scrub is what's causing the problem. See, this is another one of these issues that they're out of control. Fermilab should have talked to me. 10 years ago, Rod Warren and I found these particles which Fermilab found them exactly the same particles, only they smash things to bits, and all they see is these, and they say these are the tiniest. We don't know where they come, we don't know anything about it. Well, we know exactly where they came from because we started using light, not protons. Protons are 2,000 times, well, 1,000 times bigger than light. Now, when we put this through the Venturi, which is here, not only did it accelerate, which a Venturi accelerates things. It's fully understood a Venturi accelerates. Now, what did it accelerate? This, which is a photon. What's a photon made of? It's made of a black particle and a white particle. All right. The faster they spin, the more increase in the colors, and it goes from red to green to blue. Red is the slower spin, but we can see it easier, and we can deal with the red and look at it. You see how small that particle is glowing? You see how big that one is? You see these little bits in front of this one? It's going this direction, and this field is interacting with the fields that surround those tiny little bits, because they are gases in the air or moisture or whatnot. Now, CERN and Fermilab agree that these are the two tiniest particles, the black one with a glowy edge around it, and this one here, which has no, it's just an energy field. It has no mass, no nothing. That's what they claim. And I don't disagree with that. And here they are. These are the ones that Fermilab, this is exactly from Fermilab's point particle article, which they have now taken down that I can see. Now you have to sign in, have some code to be able to see this. But this was from our national lab, which is the black particle with the glowy edge and the point particle which has no mass. He says it has no mass whatsoever, and that has all the mass, and it has a glowy edge. And it's fixed. It never changes. Doesn't get big, doesn't get small. It's exactly, he's correct. That black and this black never get bigger or smaller. They are strongly, strongly, strongly attached to the white. However, a very cool thing happened when we put it through the Venturi. And what is that? Well, it's this. First of all, it accelerated it. Now, Venturi accelerates things, fully understood. This wave was just barely a wave. And then all of a sudden, it took off. And as it accelerated, the Venturi is really tight, and the fields had to crush each other coming in sideways. Instead of hitting head on, we just hit them sideways. Much, much better. And then we squirted the result out of here. Well, the result didn't include the black. Why not? Well, here's why. The Venturi was too small. The Venturi was right here, a little tiny Venturi. Because these are tiny little particles, and the white ones can get tiny, tiny. The black ones can't. These are the black ones. They can't get through. So just the white can get through the little tiny orifice. And it squirts them through, and the black slaps them because the black can push the white. We can adjust the frequency of the pulsations and the light to maximize the impact to push that white particle through here to get high voltage electricity. That's raw electricity. The white particle is the only thing that you want to make electricity. You put that in your car, it will not increase the weight of your car whatsoever, but it'll let you drive 500 miles for free. And your car never changes weight. You plug it back in, and zzz, never changes weight. You drive all day, never changes weight. You fill it back up, never changes weight. If you took a car and you go with gasoline, and you drive up to a pump and you fill it up with gasoline, and you put 10 gallons of gasoline in your car, you just use 60 pounds, 60 pounds of gasoline to go, I don't know, whatever mileage you get, but you got 10 gallons. So if you get 30 miles to the gallon, you got 300 miles. All right, you fill your car up with electricity, you go 300 miles, nothing changes. You didn't use 60 pounds, you didn't use anything. All it is the white wants so desperately to get back to the black that it will go right through any wires or motors or even through you. It'll explode you. That's why you get electricity, electrocuted. It will go right through the moisture in your body to continue on to get to that black. That's its whole mission in life, in electricity, is for white to be attached to black. When you strip this white off in a generator, it rips the electrons away. Either that or it forces them and pushes them into a receiving device. All right? I could take a little DC motor and spin it and put a meter on there, and you can see. You spin it 5 volts, 4 volts, 3 volts, 6 volts, 7 volts, as you spin it. And then if you spin it the other way, go -3, -5, -2. And it's just, you're pushing electricity this way or you're pulling it this way. It's one or the other. Very, very simple once you understand electricity, you understand. This is very simple. A kid understands this very quickly. And this is the exact same particles as Don Lincoln showed. And we show them too. Only we show them from starting with photons. The Fermilab is just taking us for a ride. And I told Don Lincoln, I said, I want a congressional investigation about what you're doing. I said, just turn around. I said, look, we could be friends. I said the same thing to Derek Briggs at Yale. I said, we could be. I said, my hand's always extended. I said the same thing to Don Lincoln. I said, I don't hold grudges. Let's just talk. And no, you're a tinfoil hat guy. You're an embarrassment and, you know, a disgrace and all kinds of stuff. And I said, well, what are you going to do? And then he blocked me. Because I told him, I said, well, I'm going to tell you what, by the time this is done, if you don't do your job, we're going to have a congressional investigation about you, my friend. And that was it. I was blocked. And I remain blocked to this moment. So, President Trump, please, Elon, get a hold of me, my friend. Somebody, please. I'm shouting in the desert. I'm shouting in the woods. Please, someone help. I love you all, my friends.